Singer Lisa Marie Presley's cause of death just revealed, according to the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner.
Lisa Marie Presley wasn't just the daughter of Elvis. She was a singer-songwriter in her own right, and a woman whose life was constantly under the microscope. But behind the fame was a story few ever truly understood. The world was thrown into shock when, at the age of 54, Lisa Marie tragically passed away. But it was what the autopsy uncovered months after her passing that left fans and insiders completely speechless. The toxicology report showed medications in her system. However, the official autopsy just confirmed that they weren't what killed her. So, what really happened to Lisa Marie? And why are people in the industry still whispering about her autopsy results? Lisa Marie Presley's early life. Lisa Marie Presley was born on February 1, 1968 in Memphis, Tennessee, into one of the most famous families in the world. Her father was Elvis Presley, the man known around the globe as the King of Rock and Roll, and her mother was Priscilla Presley, a woman who had become a public figure in her own right. From the moment Lisa Marie took her first breath, her life was unlike anyone else's. The cameras were already watching, the public was already curious, and the weight of her father's name would follow her forever. She was born at Baptist Memorial Hospital in Memphis, not far from Graceland, Elvis's iconic mansion. The moment was historic. News outlets covered her birth and fans gathered outside Graceland to celebrate. But for Lisa Marie, this wasn't just fame, it was the beginning of a life lived entirely in the spotlight. As a child, Lisa Marie's world was one of contrasts. At Graceland, she lived like royalty. There were dozens of staff, rooms filled with lavish furniture, and her father's endless generosity. But even in those early years, there were signs that life inside the Presley household was not as perfect as it seemed, because behind the fame was a man struggling with addiction, exhaustion, and isolation. Lisa Marie was still a toddler when Elvis's health started to visibly decline. He was gaining weight, becoming more reclusive, and increasingly dependent on prescription medication. While she was too young to fully understand what was happening, she could sense the tension in the house from the rushed medical visits, the hushed conversations, and her father's constant fatigue. By 1972, when Lisa Marie was just 4 years old, Elvis and Priscilla separated. Their marriage had been under strain for years, partly due to Elvis's touring schedule and lifestyle, and partly due to the pressures of fame. They officially divorced in 1973, and from that point forward, Lisa Marie's childhood was divided between two worlds. When she was with her father at Graceland, life was extravagant and spontaneous. When she was with her mother in Los Angeles, life was quieter and more structured. Priscilla did her best to provide stability and a sense of normalcy. She enrolled Lisa Marie in school, kept her away from the paparazzi as much as possible, and tried to give her a childhood that wasn't defined entirely by who her father was. But no matter where she went, Lisa Marie was still Elvis Presley's daughter, and that label followed her into every classroom, every social interaction, and every moment of her young life. Despite her parents' efforts, the separation wasn't easy. Lisa Marie was shuffled back and forth across the country, often flying between Memphis and Los Angeles, and in both places, she felt the same loneliness. Because even with all the attention, she was often left to navigate her feelings on her own. As she grew older, she began to notice more about her father's condition. By the time she was 9, Elvis's health had declined significantly. He was no longer the vibrant, energetic performer the world adored. He was bloated, fatigued, and emotionally drained. His diet was poor, and he relied on a daily cocktail of prescription medication to sleep, wake up, and manage pain. And even though doctors and friends tried to step in, the truth was, no one could stop the slow downfall. On August 16, 1977, Lisa Marie's world was shattered. She was at Graceland, staying with her father during one of her regular visits, when Elvis was found unresponsive in his bathroom. Lisa Marie was just 9 years old at the time, and she witnessed the panic and confusion firsthand. It's believed she may have been one of the last people to speak to him the night before. And according to several reports, she was also present in the house when his body was discovered. It's hard to imagine the impact of a tragedy like that on a child. Elvis wasn't just her dad, he was her world. Losing him so suddenly and under such tragic circumstances left a wound that never fully healed. And unlike most kids who lose a parent, Lisa Marie had to do it in front of the world. The media descended on Graceland. Fans held candlelight vigils, and Lisa Marie's confused, heartbroken, and overwhelmed face was splashed across newspapers around the globe. After Elvis's death, her life became even more complicated. She inherited a trust that would eventually make her the sole heir to the Presley estate once she turned 25. But in the short term, her life became even more private and closely managed. Her mother now had full custody, and she moved Lisa Marie back to Los Angeles full-time. In later interviews, Lisa Marie would describe her childhood as a strange kind of royalty, filled with moments of awe but also deep emotional confusion. She loved her father dearly, and he loved her in return, but the world that surrounded them was chaotic, and as a child she was often left trying to make sense of emotions far too complex for her age. But growing up in the shadow of a legend wasn't just about grief, fame, or loneliness. It was also about learning how to love in a world that rarely felt real. And for Lisa Marie Presley, love would become one of the most unpredictable chapters of her life. Lisa Marie's roller coaster relationships. As Lisa Marie Presley stepped into adulthood, the world didn't stop watching. If anything, the spotlight only grew brighter. She wasn't just the daughter of Elvis anymore. She was a woman the world expected to live up to a legacy, and in many ways, she did just that. But when it came to love, Lisa Marie's life would be anything but predictable. Her romantic relationships became a public fascination and were scrutinized in headlines, dissected on television, and debated by fans. And while the media loved the spectacle of it all, behind the scenes, Lisa Marie was simply a woman trying to find true love. Her first marriage was to Danny Keough, a quiet and soulful musician who had once played bass in her band. They met in the late 1980s, and by 1988, Lisa Marie, who was just 20 years old then, walked down the aisle for the first time. Unlike most of her relationships, this one was kept relatively low-key. They lived a quieter life, mostly out of the public eye, and in 1989, Lisa Marie gave birth to their daughter, Riley Keough. 3 years later, they welcomed a son, Benjamin Storm Keough. Lisa Marie and Danny shared a deep emotional connection, one grounded in music, parenthood, and a mutual desire for privacy. But despite their bond, the marriage began to unravel by the early 90s. In 1994, after almost 6 years together, Lisa Marie and Danny divorced. Though it ended, they remained close, co-parenting their children and continuing to support one another in quiet, meaningful ways. But shortly after her divorce from Danny was finalized, Lisa Marie did something that shook the entire world. She married Michael Jackson. The union between the king of pop and the daughter of the king of rock and roll felt like something out of a surreal dream. The announcement stunned fans, tabloids, and even friends. Their wedding took place in secret in the Dominican Republic. And when the news broke, it dominated global headlines, and fans didn't know what to make of it. Was it real? Was it a stunt? And were they truly in love? Lisa Marie, for her part, insisted it was real. She believed in Michael. She believed she could help him, support him, and even protect him from the darker forces that surrounded him. In interviews, she said that their bond was deep and emotional, and that they shared an intimacy the public never saw. But being married to Michael Jackson came with its own storm. The relentless media attention, the mounting controversies in Michael's world, and the pressure to live up to a fantastical image began to wear them both down. By 1996, just 2 years after they married, Lisa Marie filed for divorce. Their relationship may have been brief, but it left a lasting impression and a legacy of curiosity that never quite faded. Still, Lisa Marie wasn't done surprising the world. In 2002, she married Nicolas Cage, the Oscar-winning actor who also happened to be a die-hard Elvis fan. Their relationship was intense, passionate, and according to those close to them, very unstable. The chemistry between them was real, but so were the arguments. Just 3 months after tying the knot, Nicolas Cage filed for divorce. The whole relationship seemed to burn fast and bright, leaving behind more questions than answers. And then came her longest and perhaps most complicated marriage. She married Michael Lockwood, a guitarist and music producer, in 2006, and not long after she gave birth to twin daughters Harper and Finley in 2008. For a while, it looked like Lisa Marie had finally found a quieter, more settled chapter in her love life. They moved to England for a few years, lived away from the Hollywood chaos, and focused on family life. But beneath the surface, the cracks were forming. By 2016, Lisa Marie filed for divorce, sparking what would become a long, messy, and deeply painful custody battle over their twin daughters. There were accusations, court appearances, and an emotional toll that Lisa Marie would carry for years to come. What started as a hopeful partnership had turned into a bitter, drawn-out conflict that left scars on everyone involved. Lisa Marie's love life was a reflection of the world she grew up in. She had grown up surrounded by people who adored her father, who idolized the Presley name, but very few who truly saw her as just Lisa, not Elvis's daughter. And that search for authentic love would become a recurring theme in her life. But love wasn't the only thing that Lisa Marie struggled to hold on to. There were other battles she fought that the world didn't always see, and controversies that would follow her for the rest of her life. The controversies and private battles that followed Lisa Marie Presley. Even with a last name that symbolized American music royalty, Lisa Marie Presley never had the luxury of a quiet life. The same spotlight that once adored her also turned harsh and unforgiving as she grew older. And with time, she found herself at the center of several controversies, with each one peeling back the public image to reveal the complex and sometimes painful truths beneath the surface. One of the most personal and difficult stories Lisa Marie ever shared came from her childhood. It was an experience that no child should have to face. In her memoir, she revealed that her mother's ex-boyfriend, Michael Edwards, had acted inappropriately toward her during her teenage years. Though she was cautious with her words and handled the subject with as much care as possible, she didn't shy away from telling the truth. She claimed that Edwards, while intoxicated, had behaved in a way that left a lasting impact on her. The revelation sent shockwaves through her fan base, but it also earned her praise for having the courage to speak up, especially in a world that so often silences victims. But that wasn't the only chapter of her life that stirred strong reactions. Lisa Marie's relationship with Scientology became another major point of contention in her story. Raised in the Church of Scientology, largely under the influence of her mother, Priscilla, Lisa Marie had been closely associated with the religion for many years. She reportedly received counseling from the church, attended auditing sessions, and was even involved in its outreach programs. For a long time, she remained relatively quiet about her involvement, but that didn't stop the rumors from constantly spreading. Then, in a move that surprised even longtime followers of her life, Lisa Marie began to quietly distance herself from the church. Eventually, she left altogether, something that doesn't happen easily in the world of Scientology. While she never launched a full-scale attack on the religion publicly, she did suggest in interviews that she became disappointed by what she described as corruption, control, and emotional manipulation within the church's leadership. Her exit was widely covered in the media and raised questions about how deeply she had been involved and how much she might have seen behind the scenes. But perhaps no controversy followed Lisa Marie more persistently than her financial troubles. Despite being the sole heir to Elvis Presley's estate, Lisa Marie found herself entangled in a series of shocking money woes that made headlines again and again. The public couldn't understand how the daughter of one of the richest entertainers in history could end up in such a financial bind. In 2018, Lisa Marie filed a lawsuit against her former business manager, Barry Siegel, accusing him of squandering her $100 million trust and leaving her with only a few $1,000s in the bank. According to her claims, Siegel made poor investments, sold off a large portion of Elvis Presley Enterprises, and failed to properly manage her estate. Siegel in turn claimed that Lisa Marie's spending habits were part of the problem. He accused her of living far beyond her means by buying lavish homes, traveling frequently, and refusing to heed financial advice. The lawsuit became a public back and forth, exposing just how chaotic and vulnerable her financial world had become. And the timing couldn't have been worse because Lisa Marie was also in the middle of a long, bitter custody battle with her ex-husband Michael Lockwood over their twin daughters. Accusations were thrown from both sides, including concerns about substance use, parenting fitness, and money. Court documents revealed disturbing details, and Lisa Marie was caught in a storm of legal and emotional turmoil. The media covered the unfortunate scandal, every step of the way. They dissected her every word, analyzed her appearance, and speculated on her health. But most people didn't see that beneath the headlines, beyond the lawsuits and the broken trusts, was a woman who was just trying to hold it all together. If the controversies told the world what was happening around Lisa Marie Presley, the struggles told us how it felt to be her. Because behind the endless controversies was a woman deeply familiar with emotional, physical, and spiritual pain. In many ways, Lisa Marie's private battles echoed those of her father, Elvis. One of the hardest truths she ever shared publicly was about her battle with addiction to opioids and painkillers. For Lisa Marie, the addiction didn't start with partying or escapism. It actually began in a moment of vulnerability. After giving birth to her twin daughters, Harper and Finley, in 2008, Lisa Marie was prescribed opioids for pain. But what started as a medical necessity quietly snowballed into something far more dangerous. In her own words, she described how the pills slowly took over her life. Her dependency escalated to the point where she was taking up to 80 pills a day, a number that seems almost impossible to believe until you remember just how addiction works. Lisa Marie didn't hide from this truth. She openly discussed going to rehab, being hospitalized, and fighting tooth and nail to recover for herself and for her children. But illicit substances weren't the only demon she faced. As her addiction spiraled, her financial problems worsened. The lawsuits, the loss of her inheritance, and the betrayal by those she trusted all began to pile up. She found herself not only battling her health, but also trying to rebuild her life from what felt like ruins. But then came the loss that changed her life completely. In 2020, Lisa Marie's 27-year-old son, Benjamin Keogh, passed away under tragic circumstances. The news devastated her, because Benjamin wasn't just her only son. He was someone she often described as a mirror image of Elvis, both in looks and spirit. He had struggled with depression, and while Lisa Marie had always tried to support and protect him, she later admitted that his death was something she would never fully recover from. While Lisa Marie's life was often described as troubled, she fought harder than most people knew. While the world focused on the chaos around her, she was quietly battling for her future, her family, and her sense of self. Through heartbreak, addiction, controversy, and unimaginable loss, Lisa Marie Presley kept going. She showed up for her children, opened up about her truth, and tried to climb back to solid ground. But just when it seemed like she might have finally found a sliver of peace, tragedy struck again. The tragic death that stunned the world. On January 12, 2023, the world was once again reminded that fame, wealth, and legacy offer no protection from life's cruelest moments. Lisa Marie Presley, the only daughter of Elvis and Priscilla Presley, the woman who carried the weight of a name known across the globe, was gone at the age of 54. Lisa Marie had been living in her home in Calabasas, California, and although those close to her knew she had faced difficult times before, no one could have imagined that that fateful day would end in heartbreak. Emergency services were called to Lisa's house after she suffered a cardiac arrest. Paramedics arrived quickly and performed cardiopulmonary resuscitation, managing to get a pulse before rushing her to the hospital. For a brief, fleeting moment, there was hope. But all hope was lost when the news broke that Lisa Marie Presley had passed away. The announcement shattered hearts worldwide. Messages of grief flooded social media. Celebrities who had known her or simply admired her shared tributes. Her mother, Priscilla, confirmed the news in a statement that was both heartbreaking and deeply personal. "It is with a heavy heart that I must share the devastating news that my beautiful daughter Lisa Marie has left us. She was the most passionate, strong, and loving woman I have ever known." Her death felt sudden, but in the days that followed, some began to piece together clues that, in hindsight, seemed unusual. Just 2 days before her death, Lisa Marie had made her last public appearance at the Golden Globe Awards. She had attended the event to support the film Elvis, the critically acclaimed biopic about her father's life, starring Austin Butler. While many were excited to see her walk the red carpet, some viewers noticed that Lisa Marie didn't seem quite like herself. She appeared frail, moving slowly, and at one point, she had to lean on a friend to stay balanced during an interview. At the time, no one knew just how serious things were. But after her passing, those final moments took on a haunting new meaning. But as the world mourned Lisa Marie, another storm was quietly brewing. It turns out that her passing triggered not only waves of grief, but also a legal battle over her estate. Given her famous lineage and the complicated history of her finances, it was perhaps inevitable that questions would arise, but no one expected things to get so contentious so quickly. At the center of the dispute was a 2016 amendment Lisa Marie had reportedly made to her trust. The amendment removed her mother, Priscilla Presley, and former business manager Barry Siegel as co-trustees and replaced them with her daughter, Riley Keough, and her late son, Benjamin Keough. However, after Lisa Marie's death, Priscilla challenged the amendment. She claimed that she had never been informed of the changes and questioned the validity of the document. Her legal team also raised concerns about the signature, saying it appeared inconsistent with Lisa Marie's usual handwriting. They also noted that the amendment had not been legally approved, which added another layer of complexity to the situation. For a family already grieving such a sudden and devastating loss, the public legal scandal only made things harder. Fans, too, were caught off guard. It was painful to watch the Presley family, once seen as America's rock and roll royalty, caught up in a courtroom conflict that seemed to reopen old wounds. Finally, after months of negotiation, the matter was finally resolved, at least on paper. In May 2023, a settlement was reached. Under the terms of the agreement, Riley Keough would become the sole trustee of Lisa Marie's estate. Priscilla Presley, while no longer a co-trustee, received a reported multi-million-dollar settlement. Though the exact amount was not publicly confirmed, sources close to the family suggested the agreement helped bring a sense of closure to the financial dispute. Riley, now in charge of managing Graceland and the remainder of Lisa Marie's assets, stepped into a role that few could envy. At just 34 years old, she became the face of her family's legacy, the keeper of the Presley name. She had lost her brother, then her mother, and was now left to navigate financial challenges, media scrutiny, and emotional burdens. And yet, despite all the sorrow, there was still one piece of the puzzle left unresolved. One question lingered in the air, unanswered and uncomfortable. What exactly happened to Lisa Marie Presley that morning in Calabasas? The official cause of death wasn't immediately clear. There were whispers, speculations, and endless tabloid theories. But the truth would come later through an autopsy result that would completely shock the entire world. The autopsy report that left everyone stunned. After months of speculation and lingering questions, the truth about Lisa Marie Presley's untimely death finally came to light. And it wasn't what anyone expected. For someone whose life had been examined under a microscope since the moment she was born, the final chapter of Lisa Marie's story still managed to surprise the world. When her autopsy report was released in July 2023, nearly 6 months after her passing, it revealed a cause of death that few could have predicted. She had passed from complications from a small bowel obstruction. That's right, not illicit substances, not heart disease, not something dramatic or scandalous, as so many headlines had recklessly guessed. It was something far more silent and far more tragic. According to the report issued by the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner coroner, the obstruction had been caused by adhesions, which are bands of scar tissue that can form after abdominal surgeries. In Lisa Marie's case, they were a complication from bariatric surgery, a weight loss procedure she had undergone years earlier. The adhesions had developed quietly over time, but they eventually led to a blockage that disrupted the blood supply to her small intestine. That kind of complication, though rare, is incredibly serious, and if left untreated, it can be fatal. And tragically, Lisa Marie did not seek medical treatment in time. The report mentioned that she had been suffering from abdominal pain for months, yet there was no evidence that she had gone to the hospital or seen a doctor about it. Whether it was out of fear, denial, or simply not realizing how serious it was, we'll never truly know. But it was that decision that cost her everything. Naturally, the toxicology report was the part many were eager and even nervous to read. After all, Lisa Marie had publicly battled addiction in the past, and many assumed that might have played a role in her sudden cardiac arrest. But the findings painted a different picture. The toxicology results showed the presence of therapeutic levels of oxycodone, as well as buprenorphine, a medication often used to treat opioid dependency. There was also quetiapine, an antipsychotic used to treat conditions like depression or bipolar disorder. Importantly, The report was clear that none of these substances were found in levels high enough to contribute to her death. In fact, the medical examiner explicitly stated that the medications did not play a role in the fatal obstruction. This clarification was huge, especially for those who had rushed to judge Lisa Marie based on her past. For once, the narrative wasn't tied to scandal, relapse, or dysfunction. It was a medical tragedy, not a personal failing. Lisa Marie had been fighting to manage her health, and the medications found in her system reflected that effort. In many ways, that made her death even more heartbreaking. She had endured so much, worked so hard to find stability, and was doing what she believed was necessary to take care of her body. And still, her body betrayed her. But even before the shock of her autopsy findings could settle, the ripple effects had already begun. Within hours of the report's release, the music industry, Hollywood, and longtime Elvis fans reacted not just to how she died, but to everything she had endured. And what followed was something even more emotional than expected. Tributes began pouring in almost instantly, flooding social media with memories, heartbreak, and love. Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson, who had grown close to Lisa Marie during the making of the Elvis biopic, shared emotional posts. Celebrities like Leanne Rimes and Billy Corgan also spoke up about how she, Lisa Marie, lit up every room she entered. Even those who had never met her expressed grief, because Lisa Marie represented something larger than life. She was the bridge between generations, the living reminder of a man whose music changed the world. And in her own way, she carried that weight while trying to build a legacy of her own. She wasn't just Elvis's daughter. She was a mother, a songwriter, a survivor, and for millions, she was a reminder that even those born into greatness still carry burdens the world never sees. Lisa Marie Presley's autopsy brought clarity to a life too often misunderstood. As tributes pour in, her strength and legacy continue to speak louder than words. For more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching.